Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Good morning. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon, once again alone, trapped here behind the mic. No producers, no van. I don't know what's happened to Regret the Van. I mean, last week he said he had other arrangements to go to, and I get that, but I just can't get a hold of him this week. But whatever. The show must go on, as the saying goes. Much like how Zuckerberg just decided that the show must go on and then ranted for what seemed like an eternity in front of Harvard. This whole thing of Zuckerberg speaking at Harvard University seems so strange. I mean, it's not strange at all for someone like Mark Zuckerberg to go to a university and give a speech. That's normal. It's normal for anyone with anything to say to go speak in a university. The abnormal thing is, so many people are talking about a speech that had nothing to do with anything. This speech went everywhere. It dipped into political right-wing economics. It dipped into political left-wing economics. It dipped into socialist economics. It dipped into technological theories. It dipped into what the next generation do. It went everywhere. And I'm not even going to bother talk about the content. What I am going to talk about is, why is this news? If you go to any news outlet, they have something to say about this. And this was literally an hour-long speech of nothing coherent. It really wasn't anything. But yet, because it was, in fact, I apologize to everyone in the podcast. I had the wrong scene up. That was my fault. For that yay there. Though I will now that was revealed. Bacon Man, thank you for the 5-bit cheer on Twitch. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. That really just threw me completely off. It's just, once again, something that just was... There was nothing here. And it just kept going. Unjust in the chat says, an hour-long, nothing coherent speech, like Eagle Eyes on Tech. Kind of. To a degree, except at least I stay on tech, except for right now. The difference is that when I get behind a mic and rant, nobody talks about it. Because it is, in fact, just an hour-long rant. Sometimes there's something of substance, sometimes there's not. Like right now, there is nothing of substance. It is literally just me ranting right now about this. This caught everyone's attention. For no adequately explored reason. And it's time to just say, okay, look. There has to be some actual news to actually talk about, rather than one guy managing to come up with a social network that worked, unlike MySpace, who then made billions on it and then never had a good idea since then. So, there. I've now talked about it. It's now off my chest. The ranting has finished, and it only took me 5 minutes. Now, I can only imagine how long this is going to take, though. So, last week, or the week before, I can't remember which exactly, Microsoft announced a new operating system and a new laptop. They announced the Surface laptop and Windows 10S. And honestly, that was one of the most annoying press conferences ever. Mostly for the fact that it was a release where they released two big things, and both of them were steps backwards. A restricted operating system and a laptop that was way too expensive for its own good. But at least this announcement that they just recently gave out does at least bring substance. Microsoft announced in Shanghai that there are now new Surface Pro tablets. The Surface Pro is probably one of the better, more capable tablets out there, but it is on the expensive side. That is one of the big downsides of the Surface Pro. This one now does have the new Kaby Lake processors. That's Intel 7th generation. But they are all either ultra-low voltage processors, meaning that at most you're going to have 2 cores, or it's going to have the Core M processor. Core M, if you don't know, that is the Intel processor that is between the power-sipping Atom and the ultra-low voltage Core I series. The Core M's are just kind of... they're there. They just kind of exist. It barely functions. But it's at least a step better than an Atom. Here's where it's going to come down on this. The new, basically all the new Surface ones that they bring in, the new pen technology that they introduced last year. There's a new battery in there that supposedly gets up to 13 hours. Time will tell how close that is. And that's basically it. Still nice to see that the Surface Pro won't be forgotten. And who knows, maybe that Kaby Lake Core M will actually be decent. Though if you're going to get one, don't get the Core M one. Just don't. You're going to end up shelling out $800 and you're going to be sad. Very, very sad. Bacon Man in the chat asked something that's completely not tech related. Asking, would you rather wear a Bears jersey in Green Bay or a Packers jersey in Chicago? Probably the Bears jersey into Green Bay. I mean, the city of Green Bay is a lot more chill than Chicago is. When push comes to shove. Either way, you could just not do that and then have a better chance of not being hit. Let's move on. Let's talk about the announcement of something ending that actually is rather disappointing. So on my Twitch channel, since probably about 4 months into my quote streaming career unquote, I started using a reward bot called Revlo. Revlo is a bot that for 2 years that would monitor when people were watching and award a fake currency to them that they could redeem for cute little things. Things like a song request or spending enough and make the streamer do push-ups, that sort of thing. Revlo as a whole would just... It was a cute little thing that, it had a lot of people following it because it was a free bot. And it did provide a service that was, pretty good. A little something to just reward the viewers for watching. Revlo is just over 2 years old. And unfortunately, yesterday, James Sun, CEO and co-founder at Revlo, is bringing Revlo to an end. That's kind of disappointing. Like, really disappointing. Now, Revlo's not a bot I use anymore. As of 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, I began using a much older bot called DeepBot. So, the question comes up, what do the streamers that are using Revlo bot do now? And why is Revlo going? Well, first things first. Revlo is going away for a couple of reasons. One, much like what Twitter is having a problem with, Revlo couldn't find a way to monetize the bot. Revlo is a bot that's powered by servers. That means that they have a server cabinet somewhere, and that they're hosting the servers. They're hosting the bots. The bots run off servers. You think the initial cost to the servers is all that comes to it, but you've also got to consider the servers take up power. Power costs money. Eventually, stuff on servers goes down, just like on any computer. You got to pay to replace the components. The hard drives that eventually go, because you're running servers 24/7. The hard drives are going to die sooner. Now, granted, on servers you use higher quality hard drives, so it takes longer. It still means that eventually go down. You're going to need that maintenance cost, plus the bill of the power, plus the bill of the internet connection to it. And Revlo they literally had no way to make money. They didn't even have a donation link on their site. What's even worse is that this is literally the first time anyone's heard of problems financially from Revlo. The moment, like this news came out just yesterday, you go through Twitter of everyone talking to Revlo, so many people were willing just to donate money to the problem. Now, I don't know if Revlo would have lasted on donations alone. I think eventually Revlo would have needed to have done something like adding plugins that would have had to been paid for, or some sort of subscription model for like Revlo Pro, or something along that lines. I think that sort of thing would have been what would have been needed for Revlo to continue. And of course, I don't have any inside contacts within Revlo. I have no idea how much of that was talked about at Revlo board meetings. June 16th is going to be the shutdown day for RevloBot. Now, you can export your current status on Revlo into what's called a CSV, comma separated value file. Streamers like me are probably going to end up doing that, gather our data, and then try to then manually import that into whatever bot we use next. Like I said, I've already begun switching to DeepBot. I started doing that even before I heard that Revlo was going away. It's just kind of sad. Because I had high hopes for Revlo. It seemed like, it was going to go places. It was a really refined bot, except for the few times where things were going wonky. It had a nice user interface for the menus. It had so much promise. And it's just going to fade away into Twitch streaming history. Kind of sad. Though, I'll tell you what. If you want to wait for the next big thing in Twitch streaming to go away, keep an eye on Restream.io. Because the moment a lot of streamers realize what I told you guys about 3 weeks ago, that Twitch affiliates are bound by contract to only stream on Twitch, Restream.io is going to die. The only people who will then use Restream are just people who are on YouTube, and that's it. Just so they can try and bring in viewers try to get all 10 viewers from Beam, and all 15 viewers from Hitbox. And that's about it. So, but back to Revlo. I think with the right planning, with the right direction, Revlo could have been monetized and saved. I think it could have been very profitable. But, alas, no such luck. We'll miss you, Revlo. And for that, I drink to you. And by drink, I mean take a sip from this water bottle with ice in it. Against steel. Though, in kind of another weird change of events, we're going to go into something much bigger than Revlo. Revlo, of course, is just a small little bot project that really only affects the Twitch streamers. Ford, on the other hand, is just a little bit bigger. Just a little. And what's really fascinating with what's going on in Ford is that Ford had a lot on the table. They currently are working on a small, power-sipping SUV. They're working on bringing back their small pickup truck, and they're working on bringing back the Bronco, which is I don't even know what the new Bronco's going to be. The Bronco used to be like a Jeep sort of affair. I don't know what the new Bronco's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be, again, like a Jeep, or if it's going to be closer like an ATV, SUV sort of thing. Not many details about that. But with all that being planned, Ford is already getting rid of one CEO and now putting in someone else as the lead of all of Ford, as the new CEO. I mean, not the... You know what I mean. The new CEO... I want to make sure I get the name right. Jim Hackett is the new CEO. Jim Hackett apparently has a bit of a background in self-driving cars. So Ford's going to have more of a focus in that world. Now, a lot of people are kind of leery on that. They think that the future is going to be more focused on electric vehicles rather than the focus on self-driving. And I don't think anyone knows. I don't think anyone knows whether electric cars are going to take off first or self-driving cars. I'm more lenient to say that self-driving is going to take off first. Just because way too many people, even if you make the electric car have 1,000-mile range, which is absurd. That is a crazy range for an electric car. That's a crazy range for any car without needing to refuel. Even if you get there, I think there's still going to be people going, ooh, but it's 8 hours to charge. And that's always going to cause reluctance. Self-driving, all you need to do is just prove that it's not going to freak out. Make sure it's not going to, like, try to dead stop in front of a plastic bag. Or that's not going to, like, kill you against a semi-truck trailer. Or plow you into a wall. Or anything like that. The moment you can prove that, it's going to take off. The charging problem that the electric car has, I think that's going to be much harder in the grand scheme of things to get past. So Ford's putting its eggs in self-driving over electric. Though who knows? They might have a secret underground lab trying to beat Tesla to releasing a cheap, effective electric vehicle, which Tesla still has not done. Yeah, I know they've announced the Model 3, but where is it? Been years, that thing is still not around. And yeah, Chevy's got the Bolt. You know, that was the talk of everything, and then crickets. Though for all I know, they're actually still selling. They're a big thing, but new CEO, and then immediately the new CEO is putting in a brand new head team. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell. Ford's going to be one to look at to see where their focus is going to be. Is it going to be bringing back the Bronco and the Ranger? Or is it going to be in self-driving cars? Or is it going to be in an electric bike? Who knows? Well, I don't know. Let's get off cars for a minute. Let's talk about the sudden resurgence of water cooling. Water cooling in PC building has been around for a while. And it's always been something that's been considered, only in the higher end machines. Only enthusiasts really ever used to deal with water cooling. Only they were crazy enough to go and make their own custom water blocks. Nowadays, there's been all sorts of graphic cards with water blocks built into them, along with a radiator, and all in one package. Any person could install them, as well as all in one 120, 240, 360 millimeter radiator water block combinations that anyone could install on their CPU. So really, old school water blocking, creating your own loop in your own reservoir, and water cooling everything started dying off. Well, EVGA, it's just like, no. We're going to go back to making standalone water blocks so that you can custom make your loops again. Now, keep in mind, I am talking about custom water blocks for hand building your loop. I'm not talking about going out and buying an all-in-one system that all you do is latch on the water block onto your CPU and then mount the radiator on the top of your case. You are mounting on the top of your case, right? Not on the rear? I mean, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but one place is 10% better than the other, just because of how heat rising works. Let that radiator ambiently cool off better. Anyway, enough about CPU building 101. The fact that this is coming back to building it from scratch is actually rather shocking. At least to me, anyway. It seemed to be something that only the foolish of the fools would do. Go into that level of dedication. Just for putting in your custom block and filling it with whatever color liquid you want. It's basically just for show building, as it's called. Yeah. Though maybe it's just show building in general that's coming back in style. It would make sense. RGB RAM, RGB motherboards. I think the RGB RAM really is the bigger sign that that showboat building is coming back in style, don't you think? Just seeing your RAM alone glow in different colors, that's just the ultimate sign of, I want the inside of my computer to be as pretty as possible. And forget the expense. I mean, the only way you could be crazier is jury-rig up some sort of crazy system where you could control all the fan LEDs at once, along with the speeds. Just making it all just go, yeah, I want it to be red right now. So we're in an intense match. Okay, we're chilling out now. Let's make it blue. Make it all pretty. But nobody's foolish enough to sell a system like that. That's just excessive and unnecessary, and Corsair went and did it anyway. Yeah, Corsair did it. Command, connect, control. Corsair announces the new Commander Pro, Lightning Node Pro, and HD 140 RGB fans. The Commander Pro is a Corsair Link compatible fan controller with some extra tricks up its sleeve. Not only does it offer 6 fan connectors, there are a pair of internal USB ports, as well as 2 RGB connectors for LED lighting strips, and 4 temperature control units. Combined with the Corsair Link dashboard, and you can keep tabs on everything from coolant temperatures to fan speeds. It is basically a computer you put inside your computer for the sole purpose of managing fan speeds and lights. Oh yes. This is not an article I dug up from April 1st. This is a real thing. The RGB disease spreads even further. Now, it's kind of interesting that this comes out. A separate controller just for LED lighting and fan lighting. Because I always thought that the way this was going to be done was the road that Asus went. Putting the controller for LED lighting on the motherboard. Having it controlled from the BIOS. Putting on a separate controller, that's interesting. Now, the unfortunate thing is I don't know what the Corsair Link dashboard is. I'm not entirely certain if that's like a panel you put on the inside of your machine, or if it's a piece of software. It is a piece of software. I just looked it up. Okay. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's a piece of software, and it actually brings up a picture of the inside of your case. Or what it assumes your case is. And just gives you about what each fan speed is, as well as the temperature is picking up in various areas of the case. That's actually very interesting. It's actually really nice to monitor everything, compared to what I'm doing right now. Plus those lights. I mean, those lights are pretty. No, focus! Don't fall into the lure of the LED lights. Efficiency first. That is the key. I mean, look, all things considered, this is pretty harmless. I mean, you want to go out and get it and add lights to your case, by all means, go ahead and do it. You want to go and rig up a custom water cooling block, go ahead and do it. Just make sure you tighten everything down, that there's nothing at risk. It's not like we're doing anything absolutely clinically insane, like building a water-cooled power supply or anything. That would just be oh, they did it. The FSP. Oh no, that's the name of the country. That's the company, not the country. FSP introduces the Hydro PTM Plus liquid-cooled power supply. Oh. I want to let that sink in for a minute. Liquid cooled power supply. If you know anything about PC building, this just sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen. One of the biggest fears about setting up any liquid cooling block is that liquid leaks out at any of the joints of the loop. The biggest fear is that something is going to spring a leak, liquid will get on the motherboard and cook the whole system. There's only one more component in the entire computer that is more sensitive to liquid than the motherboard. And that's the power supply. But here's the killer. Now, this particular power supply, it's a 1200 watt modular power supply, which is good as a normal power supply. The thing is that is this worth the risk? Now, of course, to top it all off on this magical power supply, there are LEDs on the power supply, just to add to it all. Now, fortunately for this thing, the way it's constructed is that this looks like a normal power supply unit. You got the plug in the rear. It's then a box. You do still have a fan on this thing. And that might be to cool it when it's not being water cooled. If you decide to just use it as a normal power supply and then rig up the water cooling later. But then on the part that's actually inside the computer, the part that's actually facing it, I should say, you then got all your modular connections. You can just add and subtract wires when needed. And then you notice there's this big block sticking out of the power supply. And that's where water in and water out are. Those are where the two grommets are. Fortunately, because it's on that block and sticking pretty far out of the power supply, that does mean that the area where there's most likely to be a leak is far away from the components as possible. So, I mean, that's good. They at least did think ahead there. But I still gotta look at this from a risk-reward sort of scenario here. What's your reward? Your power supply runs crazy cool. Assuming your water pump can move that much water around to get cooled off. What's the risk? Every single component in the entire computer. Every component needs power. If water gets inside the power supply, it can surge. A surge will fry everything. I got a surge protector. Yeah, well, the surge is happening past the surge protector. I just don't see how this is worth it. It just isn't. But there it is. I mean, what's left in the computer that can be water cooled? I mean, I guess the RAM could be, but the RAM doesn't even get hot enough to justify heat spreaders most days. Unless you're using crazy overclocked RAM. I think even to even water cool the RAM, you'd have to go. You have to use special RAM. The motherboard would have to be unique to allow spreaders big enough to allow for the water cooling. That'd be a mess. Oh man. Let's just no. Don't do that. That's bad. It'd be such a mess. I'd say water cooled motherboard, but that's been done from the factory, in fact. There are a bunch of gaming motherboards out there that actually do have water in and water out on the heat spreaders for the MOSFETs around the CPU. I've even seen ones that also have grommets on the spreader for the chipset. Water-cooled GPUs, that's been done. I guess the only thing left is water cooling hard drives and SSDs. I'm sure water-cooled hard drives have been done at some point. Especially with the dawn of the Raptors and Velociraptors. The crazy high-spinning hard drives. What's left? I suppose the only thing that could be crazier is water cooling the CD-ROM drive for no reason. I'm sure someone would do that. I remember actually chatting with Regret the Van one time. We were on a delivery, and I joked around about a water-cooled rack mount server, only to then find out later on that actually was done. That was about the craziest water-cooled thing I've ever thought of until now, for someone to actually do a water-cooled power supply. Now, let's close up shop today by answering the question, can it run Doom? For whatever reason, someone decided somewhere in the world that they looked at their thermostat. Their thermostat has a small little... How big of a screen is this? They don't say in the article, actually. But specifically the one they check on is the Honeywell Prestige Thermostat. It's got a color LCD. And of course it has no sound. Obviously, it's a thermostat. But then they ask, can it run Doom? Well, the answer is yes, it can run Doom. We can, in fact, make your thermostat run Doom. So the question then comes, how? Why? Well, most of it was done with the magic of one thing that this thermostat has. This thermostat has an LCD, has a USB port on it. And that's what did it. Because of the USB port, you can now start messing with the operating system, get a copy of Linux on there, And then, bam, you can run Doom. Undust Banana asked, does Doom run on my watch? Doom. I haven't heard anyone actually getting Doom to run on the Galaxy Gear S2, which is what my watch is. Someone did get Doom to run on the Pebble and the Apple Watch. It is run on both of them. So, there you have it. So now you know you can go up to someone and ask them, hey, what games does your thermostat have? So there just comes a time and point where you just gotta ask, what else can we make run Doom? Well, that's gonna do it for me, guys, today. Thank you so much for listening. I know today was a short podcast. What can you do? Short-handed and, unfortunately, short story. Today was a quiet week. Next week, on the other hand, will not be. And Computex is coming up. We'll have much to talk about then. Take care. I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.